We all have this idea that free markets are just these incredible engines for innovation. The fewer rules, the more bright ideas bubble to the surface, right? Well, what if I told you that in a truly, totally free market, no rules at all, we'd actually get way less innovation? It's a paradox, and we're going to unpack it. So here's the big question right up front. If innovation is so valuable, why don't pure, unregulated free markets pump out enough of it? It feels completely backwards, but the answer lies in this fundamental problem that every single inventor, from a startup in a garage to a giant corporation, has to face. And that leads us straight into what we can call the innovator's dilemma. It's a high-stakes gamble that can put even the most brilliant creators in a totally impossible spot. Okay, put yourself in the shoes of an inventor. You spend a ton of money on research and development. Now, if your project fails, boom, you've lost all that cash and you're falling behind. But here's the real kicker. If your project succeeds in a world with no rules, your competitors can just waltz in, copy your amazing idea for free, and start selling it. You're left holding the bag for all the R&D costs while they get to reap the rewards. It's basically a heads you lose, tails they win situation. So why on earth would anyone take that bet? Well, economists actually have a name for this. It's called a positive externality. Now, you've probably heard of negative externalities, right? Like pollution, where a factory makes a product, but society pays the price for the dirty air. Well, innovation is the exact opposite. Society gets this huge benefit, a new medicine, a new piece of technology, but the inventor doesn't get fully paid for creating it. And the bottom line is, if you can't capture the value you create, you're just not going to produce as much of it as we all need. I mean, just look at the wild story of Gordon Gould. This is the guy who came up with the idea for the laser way back in 1957. He even got his notebooks notarized to prove it. But he thought he needed a working prototype to get a patent, so he waited. That one mistake kicked off a decades-long legal war. He finally got his patent in 1977, a full 20 years later. But his financial reward was just a drop in the bucket, compared to the trillions of dollars of value the laser created for the world. Society got this world-changing technology, and the guy who dreamed it up, he got peanuts, relatively speaking. Eli Whitney, the guy who invented the cotton gin, absolutely nailed it with this quote. His patent was one of the very first ever issued in the United States, but it was just completely ignored by the courts in the South. Everybody copied his design, and he made next to nothing from it. His invention was so powerful, so valuable, that it was basically treated like it was too important for him to own. So clearly you need some kind of system to fix this problem. Which brings us to the fix that society eventually came up with, this idea of creating a special, government-backed right for inventors to actually profit from their own ideas, at least for a little while. And get this is not some newfangled idea. It is literally written into the US Constitution. The founders themselves understood that if you want progress, if you want new science and new art, you have to give creators an incentive. You have to grant them an exclusive right, basically a temporary monopoly, to encourage them to do the hard work. So this whole system is what we call intellectual property, or IP, and it's really built on four main pillars. You've got patents, which protect inventions for about 20 years. Then there's copyright for things like books and music, which now lasts for the author's entire life plus another 70 years. Trademarks, think the Nike swoosh or the golden arches, protect brand names and symbols, and they can last forever as long as you keep using them. And finally, you have trade secrets, like the secret formula for Coca-Cola, which are protected for as long as you can manage to keep them under wraps. And believe me, the law takes trade secrets very seriously. Back in the 60s, a rival company actually hired a pilot to fly over a new DuPont chemical plant that was being built just to snap photos and steal the manufacturing process. The court sided with DuPont, and the judge's ruling gave us this amazing, almost poetic quote, calling it what it was: espionage. Okay, so patents and copyrights are the big ones, but they're not the only tools in the government's toolbox. There are other, more direct ways to get new ideas flowing. Now, this is fascinating. Just look at the massive shift in who actually pays for research and development. Back in the 1960s, think the space race, the US government funded about 2/3 of all R&D. Fast forward to the 2000s, and it's completely flipped. Private industry now funds almost 2/3. And why does that matter? Well, government tends to fund basic, long-term science, while industry, it's focused on applied research that leads to a product they can sell pretty quickly. So besides IP, what else can the government do? Well, it can directly fund that basic research at universities. It can give out tax credits, which is a really flexible way to encourage companies to spend more on R&D. And sometimes it can even bend the antitrust rules a bit to let rival companies team up on really expensive, risky projects. All right, so it seems simple, right? We need these rules to spur innovation. But, and this is a big but, here's the twist. The very system that's designed to create progress can sometimes be used to choke it off completely. And sometimes you see patents get approved that just kind of make you scratch your head. Priceline got a patent on the idea of bidding for stuff online. Amazon patented one-click buying. One company even patented a crustless peanut butter and jelly sandwich and then sued little cafes for making them. So you really have to wonder, are these truly new inventions deserving of a 20-year monopoly, or are they just business methods used to block competition? But this is where it can get really, really serious. Back in the early 70s, Xerox didn't just have a patent on the photocopier. They had piled up, get this, over 1,700 patents on every single tiny piece and improvement. It created something called a patent thicket, a legal jungle so dense that it was impossible for anyone else to build a competing machine without getting sued. Well, eventually the government had to step in. The antitrust folks basically accused Xerox of using the patent system not to protect an invention, but to create a permanent monopoly. Xerox had to agree to license its patents out, and the result was, frankly, immediate and dramatic. Competitors flooded the market, and Xerox's market share, which had been at 95%, was sliced in half in just a few years. And this isn't just about patents. In 1998, copyright protection got extended by another 20 years. I mean, it's pretty hard to argue that you're incentivizing long-dead authors to write more books, right? A huge reason for this was to keep beloved corporate characters, like Mickey Mouse, from entering the public domain where any new artist could use them. It really makes you ask, is the goal to help new creators, or is it about protecting the profits of huge corporations that already exist? So all of this brings us back to the central challenge, right? It's this incredibly delicate, high-stakes balancing act. And this is so important to remember. Even with all these protections in place, economists figure that innovators only capture about a third of the value they create. Where does the other two-thirds go? Well, it spills over to all of us. We get better, cheaper products as consumers, and other companies get to build on those new ideas. And that really gets to the heart of it. The point of all this isn't just to make inventors rich. That's just the means to an end. The real goal, the big prize, is to design a system that keeps a steady flow of new ideas coming, raising the standard of living for everybody. It's a tool for progress. Which leaves us with the billion-dollar question that we're still trying to answer. Because every new invention is built on top of an old one. So the question is, how do we design the rules to give today's inventors the reward they deserve for taking a risk, without accidentally creating a legal wall that stops the next generation from building something even greater? That is the innovation paradox.